your perspective is going to dictate how you react to a situation. And if you can learn to control what's going on in between your ears, you might see the situation a little differently.
You are now listening to the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author of the book Stay the Course, and Maxwell Leadership Certified Team Member, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be getting some tips and techniques to advance yourself up next. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North podcast, and we got another super special, awesome human for you today, folks, because my goodness, not only is my man an author, he's also a speaker and a business consultant, as well as a certified life coach, all the way from the OC, baby, Oakland, California. And to put the icing on the cake, he has served on active duty. Heard that right, folks. Active duty in the U.S. Air Force for over 20 years. So let's give it up for the KE himself, the kind and excellent Kevin Eastman. How you doing today, Kevin?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. That's right, indeed. Appreciate having you on here, man. I'm telling you, that's right. Always great to have the veterans on the podcast. Father served in the wonderful country, and folks deserve respect. Like, hey, y'all fighting for the freedom, and it's like, hey, like, no matter how long it's been, like, always got to acknowledge that. So thank you so much for your service.
No, thank you for the respect and thank you for the support. It was a long journey. I had fun. I went to places that I normally would not have gone, otherwise, seen things that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. But overall, it was a very good experience, obviously, because I stayed 20 years when the initial plan was to serve four and get out.
So the mind control was working, huh?
It must have done something. I'll tell you that.
So my goodness, so how did that work? How that even come about, my man? Like, did the right recruiter finally find you? Like what led you to join the Air Force?
Well, it was an interesting story for me. I growing up, I was planning to play professional baseball, but I ran into a situation. I was good, but not great. So when high school came around, I kind of got fed up with school. I didn't want to go to college at first. Mom was in one ear saying, "You need to go to college." I'm looking at her saying, I don't want to go." So it was one of those things where I missed the deadline for financial aid. I think I kind of missed it on purpose, thinking back in hindsight, you know, but the Air Force was the easiest way for me to go to college without having to go to college and getting mom off my back and then put a paycheck in my pocket every 2 weeks. So the package was set there. So, I had my plans, life had its plans, and life showed me who was in charge at that time. And there I went, into the Air Force. And 20 years later, I have three college degrees, mom's off my back, and I have a retirement pension for the rest of my life. So it worked out perfectly.
Ah, yes indeed, yes indeed. Well, congratulations, man, and 3 degrees while in the service, man. So how was that balance, man? Because I'm pretty sure, of course, after basic trainings, I'm sure there's probably a lot of stuff you had to do on top of everything else. How was that balance?
Well, I actually I didn't start my college degrees until I didn't start fully trying to get them until after I retired. Believe it or not, up until that point, I was taking a college course here and there, trying to get things done, check boxes to get to the next step in my career. And towards the end of my career, I said, you know what, it's time to pick up the pace. So I actually started my bachelor's degree and my associate's degree close to my retirement date. I didn't finish the master's I actually didn't start the master's and finish until after I retired. So the balance is one of those things that a lot of people, in life, they you have to find that balance. And the hard part is, because we have emotions that take over, and it creates the imbalance, and the scales keep going tipping all the way to one side and to the other because we keep trying to balance it out, and that's what happens. And for me, and just about everybody else, once you learn to control those emotions, you will learn that you can just add a little bit and it'll balance it out by itself without you having to do it for it, without you having to help it along.
That's what I'm talking about right there, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, my goodness, man. So, doing the active duty, being a wonderful drill instructor, and then getting all the wonderful degrees after retiring. Now got the pension. So, my goodness, what led you to decide to write a book? Was that something that came to you like during your time in service after baseball didn't really come to fruition?
Well, in a sense, it did. I had wonderful mentors in the Air Force that helped me along the way, and the book came along actually by accident, so to speak. I was writing, a bunch of essays for personal reflection because life was not going the way that I wanted it to go at some point, and I had to figure out why. And what I did was I actually drew on the experience that I had with those past mentors and started writing these essays. And then as I started reading them back as a reader and not as a writer, it was like, well, wait a minute, somebody else can benefit from these lessons that I learned. And thus the book was born.
Oh, yes, it did. Yes, it did. Congrats, congrats. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And if I'm not mistaken, you actually published it, and now it's in second edition form, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. I actually published it initially in 2018, and I got a lot of positive feedback. But there were a couple of things in there that people were contacting me and saying, I wasn't sure what you meant by that, or what you mean by this. I didn't quite get it. So I went back and read it again and go, oh, okay, I got it. Now I need to clarify what I meant when I said blah 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 blah. So I went and re-released it in a second edition back in 2020, and I'm still contemplating making it into an audio book. But I would have to be the one to do it, because I know how I want the words delivered and whatnot. So it's like, well, if I'm going to do it, I can't hire an actor to do it unless I'm sitting there with them to coach them how I want the words to be relayed.
Man, busy popping out the voice acts computer. And your old drill instructor guard be like, "Hey, how you doing there, buddy?" Like, "Oh shoot, what's going on here? How'd you find this address?" I want you to read these words exactly how I want you to read
Exactly.
them. Oh man. But yeah, you definitely should read your book though, definitely, especially if you know exactly how you want the words to sound and how you want it exactly conveyed too. And plus, blind folks get to listen to the book too.
Yes. And that's part of the thing that I'm really contemplating doing an audiobook so that any and everybody can look at it, so that, figuratively speaking, of course, if they're seeing it, if they're sight impaired, then they wouldn't be able to see it, but they would be able to hear the words, and it would still be as effective if they were seeing it.
Yes, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, so I got this wonderful book, Self Help Goodness, for folks to get motivated and inspired to make some wonderful changes in their lives. Is there another genre you might think of pursuing in the future while you're still contemplating on whether to do an audiobook?
Well, I have, but I have a bunch of ideas in my head. I just kind of go with the flow. If something comes to an idea, I'll do it. To see if it happens, see what happens. It's fun doing it. it was actually therapy for me writing the first book because it was a lot. I had to relive a lot of those lessons that I had been taught and up to that point had ignored, but reading it, it was writing it, it was like, whoa, okay, they weren't stupid, they had some sense when they told me that. It's funny. I have the story that I thought my parents were stupid until I was about 22 years old, and then the light bulb came on. I
Yep.
was like, okay, whoa, they're not stupid, and everything started to click from there. But growing up, like every teenager, no, mom and dad just they don't know. Yeah, they do. You just don't know.
Oh yeah, you can say that again. Yeah. Exactly. Our parents sound smarter and wiser as we age.
Oh, absolutely. And going back to, you mentioned the book, and a lot of people are, they're apprehensive about it because of the genre it is. In our community particularly, there's nothing ever wrong with anybody. Ain't nothing wrong with me. And I tell people, well, there was nothing wrong with me either until I found out there was. So you, and secondly, there's nothing has to be wrong for, so to speak, for it to improve. You don't have to have anything wrong with you. And one of the things that I tell people with my book is my book will either help you or it'll help you help someone, because everybody can relate to the topics that I talk about in the book, and it's set up in a very systematic way. It's kind of like a building block from one chapter to the next, as kind of like a blueprint for making changes in your life, and it's based off of my experience, logic, humor. I add that in there, and observation, because a lot of things we encounter in life, they are not as they seem, they are as we see them.
Hmm. You could say that again. Yeah, you could definitely say that again because it's true. It's definitely true. Oh man.
And what I do with that is I kind of I put put these topics out there as they are, as they appear, and then show how they should appear. It's not to say that I know everything and nobody knows anything. It's just I try to get the reader to look at things from a different perspective, because your perspective is going to dictate how you react to a situation. And if you can learn to control what's going on in between your ears, you might see the situation a little differently.
Amen to that. You're so darn right about that. It's kind of how the way technology is wired based off of the decades of study based off of human behavior. It's like like all the social media and everything else. It's like, hey, let's design this so that way if you like something and you click on it, we're gonna give it to you forever and ever. So that way you never get off of it and then you lose hours of your life if you're not paying attention.
Exactly. It goes back to that thing you said about earlier, about balance. I mean, the word balance is prominently featured throughout my book. And I harp on it a lot because what I've learned is that a lot of the things I was encountering in life was creating the imbalance, was due to imbalance. But what I've realized is that a lot of that imbalance I was actually creating in my head. And that was not a comfortable feeling, but it was something that I had to go through in order to get over that obstacle.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, speaking of getting over obstacles, a man has a whole bunch of stories to share, and I'm pretty sure been plenty of setbacks. But what would you probably consider to be your greatest failure that actually ended up becoming your greatest success?
I would probably say that, going through that, I don't want to go to school. That I'm done with school. I've been through high school. I did that, and then having to, make a complete 180 and go through college afterwards. That it was like, whoa, okay, that's a change that you had to go through. And it's like that was an obstacle that was sitting there that I had put there myself. I don't want to go to school. That was an obstacle. Now it's like, okay, well, in order to get to the next step, I have to go through school. So I had to go through that obstacle, and one of the things I tell people in my book, there's something that I learned from the military. You have an objective and you have you. Now, what's in between you and the objective? You still got to make it to that objective regardless of what's in front of you. So you have to be willing to go over, under, around, or even through anything that is standing between you and that objective that you want to achieve. And that's what I had to do.
Yeah. You can say that again. Definitely can say that again. Like as we're talking about the objective and like you and everything in between, it's like it kind of reminds me of this meme I saw a while back about success, where it's like, folks would like to think it's a straight arrow, but it's really a bunch of squiggly lines.
It is. It definitely is. You can take 50 different roads to get to one destination, but all of them will lead to that destination. It's just a matter of how far out of the way you have to go from that straight line. We would all like to go from A to B, but sometimes it's A to B to G to N to Z, but you get there eventually.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So my goodness, folks are probably at letter G on their way to California, but they realize that they're actually in Albuquerque. So my man probably
Exactly.
knows how to to stay focused. So my goodness. So what helps you to really stay focused, man? Because it sounds like you're wonderful military training and background helped you to really stay focused and to really turn any obstacle into a stepping stone to get you closer to finishing your objectives.
Well, you have to be that way. You're going to have obstacles that are in your way, and you have to be able to have that flexibility to get around them. There are things that you're going to run into, and you have to decide if that obstacle is enough to make you stop pursuing the goal. Either it is or it's not. If it's not, keep walking. If it's enough for you and you are satisfied with where you are, you can stop. But for me, it's like, well, if I have a goal in mind, an obstacle, it really is a stepping stone.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Stepping stone, goodness a day, baby. That's right indeed. So my goodness, so since you've been on a couple interviews before, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on these interviews?
The most time I usually get the interview is, why did I write the book? What's the goal behind it? Those types of things. But I kind of answer those questions quite a bit when I talk with people. Why I wrote the book. I wrote the book to help people. A lot of people, they are going through some of the similar things that I went through. I try to help them, with what I learned. Those things. And what's the point behind the book? If you're not sure how to get things going where you want them in your life, this might be one of the tools you can use. I can't promise you that my book is going to help you, but I can promise you that you will know somebody in your life that will need something in that book that will help them. That's the only guarantee that I can have with the book. If you read it, you'll be like, oh, okay, I went through this. But or you'll read it and go, I know somebody who's gone through this or is going through this. And it helps everybody out.
Oh yeah, definitely could say that again because it's so true. It's like with self help, it's like it. Some folks might be like, "Oh yeah, I've read that before. It's stuff. I already know how to do that stuff." But sometimes they don't really do it. They just maybe take it in. They probably think they're taking it in, but they're not really doing anything
You are
with it.
100% correct. You are 100% correct. And that's why I wrote the book the way I did. I didn't want the reader to think they were reading a book. I wanted them to think they were having a conversation with me, because self-help is a hard genre to write, because there's nothing ever wrong with anybody, nothing wrong with me. Yet the self-help industry generates about $9 billion a year. So there's something wrong with somebody, you know. So And that's not just one person, you know. So you have to keep that in mind. You know, that's what I always let people know. Don't think of it as, oh, there's something wrong with me. You know, like, well, life's not quite going the way I want it. Can I see another perspective? Somebody else, what do you see when you look at this? And you might go, whoa, I never looked at it that way.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. That perspective shift. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Sometimes you just gotta roll the dice again. That's right. That's right, indeed, because you don't want the snake eyes to show up.
Well, you know what? It's funny you bring up the dice because there is a pair of dice on my book cover, and a lot of people are thrown off by that because they think that the book is about gambling, and it's so not. The book, all of the imagery on the book is basic metaphor. You know, the dice on the book cover are falling off of a cliff, and it's an illustration of how people will take a gamble and throw a pair of dice off a cliff and hope it lands on the seven at the bottom of the canyon when they can actually see it if they drop the dice at their feet. And you don't have to wonder what it is. You can see it right away. So it's one of those things. There's a lot of symmetry or a lot of symbolism in the book cover that a lot of people don't realize. And I had to write a blog post about it to let people know what they're looking at, to let them know the thought process that went into this. There is a reason for everything in that book.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And good reasons, I imagine. So, my goodness, so speaking of designs and metaphors, and of course, the symbolism, if your book was a food, what would it be and why?
Oh, it probably would be a buffet, and the reason is because there's so many different things in there. You know, it's just one of those things. You can taste it. You know, if you go right in the middle, you can taste it. But if you go down the line and read it from front to back, it's like going from left to right on a buffet. You get a taste of everything, and it works out.
Ah, yeah. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed, baby. That's right. You're gonna get the whole buffet with this book, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right. Bring your friends. That's right. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, indeed. So that's right. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So if you love to eat, pick up this book. That's right. It's the buffet that survived COVID.
And believe me, it will. You know, I always tell people to believe me that the best way to read my book is to forget everything you know and just open it and start reading. Because a lot of people will have that preconceived notion about a self-help book, and they'll go, oh, I don't know, I don't. There's a chapter in there on relationships, so to speak. There is a chapter 7 is on relationships, and a person will see the table of contents. They'll go, oh, I got a question about relationships. Let me go right to that. No, that's not quite how you want to do that, because I wrote it in a way to build up to that. So if you read chapter 7, you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. But if you haven't read chapters 1 through 6, chapter 7 won't make as much sense. It will make some sense, but not as much, because I do reference a lot of things in previous chapters in a certain in a given chapter. So it's one of those. You'll be surprised at what you will learn if you read it, because it is laid out in a very intentional way.
So you heard that right, folks. This ain't no book you can skip. It's one of those books with a trap in there. It's like, it's like, funny if I just said that, it reminded me of this book. It was hilarious. I think it was like Create Your Own Demand or something. And like the one chapter is called Earn What You're Really Worth. And then the first sentence was, okay, if you picked up this book and you're reading this chapter first, go back and read chapter 1.
Exactly.
It was literally the first
Only I
sentence.
don't only I don't give that much direction, but it would have been fun to do that and be like, if somebody the first thing out of chapter seven, you'd be like, you didn't read chapter one through six, go back and do it first, those type of things.
That's right, third edition. Let me stop. You'll get the full drill instructor on this one, baby. Oh my goodness. Well, coming down to the magical question every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're still in 2022 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, I would tell people just listen to the mentors that you have. You have mentors. One of the things I tell people is you can learn something from everybody you meet. You can learn what to do or you can learn what not to do. And every person that you meet has had a unique path to get to where they are. But any one of them can be holding the information you need to get you to where you want to be. It's your job to find them. And the only way you can do that is by talking to enough people until you find them. And once you find them, you'll know.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's right. You heard the man. That's right. The legendary Special K himself, baby. That's right. You can learn from anybody. That's right, indeed. You know what to do and what not to do, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. It's probably one of the good things about social media. It's like, all right, so don't do that stupid thing. Oh, hey, it's an ad. Hey, it's actually useful. All right, cool. Let me do this thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, man. So, for those who need to snag some copies of your wonderful book and share with the rest of the friends and keep up with your journey and all the wonderful stuff you're doing, what's the best way for folks to do so, Kevin?
Oh, you can get them. You can get my book on all of the major online book retailers. Amazon. It's on Kobe for people that are in Canada. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's on Apple Books. Or you can go to the website. The website is kevineastman.com. I always emphasize my middle initial because the creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is actually named Kevin Eastman. That's not me. So have
Yeah.
to put my middle initial in there, and there are direct links for the book on the website, and there's also a free two chapter preview on on this website as well. A person can find out the topics that I talk about in the book, as well as the first two chapters to kind of give them a gist of what to expect from the rest of the book. It's on there. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. So I'm not hard to find. You just have to make sure you're looking for the right Kevin Eastman.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the drawback in major research. It's like, hey, my man's got a lot of stuff. Hey, wait a second. This ain't the same Kevin Eastman here.
And ironically, there is an NBA basketball coach with the name Kevin Eastman as well. I've
Mm-hmm.
actually contacted him and had a conversation with him and said, "Does it sound weird listening to somebody that has your same name?" And he told me, "No, not anymore. It used to be."
Oh, man. I guess that means y'all should probably do a seminar together. Kevin and Kevin.
Hey, never say never.
Oh, yeah. That's right, folks. So that way you won't land in the rabbit hole. We're gonna put a link to his direct website in the show notes indeed, so that way you can keep up with all the wonderful stuff that the wonderful Kevin E. Eastman is doing. That's right. That's right, indeed. So that way you won't get lost in the black hole. Don't want you to get lost in there. Oh man. So any parting words before we close up shop, sir?
Actually, it It was a pleasure talking with you. I appreciated the opportunity to kind of share a little bit of my story with your listeners. Hopefully, I got some value. I put some value, gave some value to them. And if they feel the need to contact me, have them reach out, I will be happy to speak with them about my book. If they had any questions, what to expect from the book, where to get it, all of those things, I'm happy to help.
Thanks a bunch for tuning in and setting aside some of your time to listen to this wonderful podcast, Going North. If you really enjoyed what you heard, do me a solid and share this with your network and someone that you care about that would get something out of it too. And be sure to subscribe to hear more, and heck, even check out the backlog if you would like, because there are hundreds of episodes to choose from, and they just keep getting better and not butter.